going on, guys? Welcome to Beast Class build number 4. Let's get straight into it. One special note I need to correct. I said that there was not a difference between the front and the back of this. There is a difference between the front and the back of this. If you look here, there's this large triangle and this small triangle. Giving you a little piece of material here and a lot of piece of material here. The back of this frame is the one with the small triangle and the large piece of material. So I just wanted to correct that. We do have it correct in this build. So showed it to you correctly. I just explained it wrong. So there's that. This is the front, that's the back. Small triangle over there. So there's that. Just because we've been looking at this a lot, we're going to go and work on the upper section of the frame, and we're going to install the camera. To do that, we're going to need, obviously, the upper section of the frame. This is the top of the frame. This is where the camera goes. This is looking forwards. We want these metal inserts facing up because the screws come in from the bottom to hold the arms. We're also going to want these 3 standoffs that come with it. These are the 28mm, and there's a whole boatload of 25mm, so just be careful you're picking the right ones. We need the 2 camera plates, and then there's 2 TPU printed mounts for these. Next, we want, these are 3/8 sheet metal screws, and these are 1/2-inch sheet metal screws. And then we got the 2 camera screws. These are the M2. These are 4mm M2 screws, and then these tiny little M2 washers. The other thing that we're going to need for the standoffs are the 6 8mm button heads. So let's go ahead and start with the camera plates. And because I don't have much room on my bench, this stuff is going to stay where it is, and we'll just work accordingly. So for this, we're going to need a camera plate. And the way this works, we've got, this is the front, I believe. And the way the camera is going to sit, something like this. So it's got a little bit of protection, and then you can mount it in either, I'm going to assume the bottom is for the larger cameras, and then the top is for like the micro cameras and whatnot. So this should sit, this is the top, so that's the top of the camera. So this should sit somewhere about here. And then as you can see, we line up that hole like so. So knowing that, we're going to pretend this is the outside. So we're going to take this mount, and the way this works is we're going to screw this right onto the side there. As you can see, these holes line up here. And we want this rounded side facing down, and then the flat side, which is going to capture the part of the frame facing up. We're going to put the screws. For these ones, we are going to use the smaller 3/8 screws, and we're going to run these from the carbon into the TPU and just snug them down. These are a Phillips head, and I'm using a number 1 Phillips for this. And the hole in the TPU is fairly small, so be careful when you start forcing this thing in. You don't want to put a screwdriver or a screw into your hand. That sucks. I did that a few weeks back. Screwdriver halfway through my hand. Ouch. Okay, that's the first one. Now, we're going to take the second one. We're going to kind of make a mirror image of it. So if we take this, make it like a H pattern with that, and then we're going to put this right here. Again, flat side facing up, rounded side down, and then the 3/8 screws through the carbon into the TPU. Now that that's all set, we're going to take these and install them into the frame. Move those off camera. These guys are staying here because they're small and I don't want to lose them. So now what we do here is stuff this through like so and slide it in place. Then, as you can see, these holes here line up with these holes here. So we're going to run our 1/2-inch screws down from the top. And we're only going in a TPU, so just give it a little bit of a snug, and you don't have to go crazy with it. Okay, that is plate number 1 installed. Next we're going to take plate number 2. And the easy way to do this is on an angle, fit the front first, get it underneath the lip like that, and then just fit it like that, rotate it in place. Nice and easy. And repeat with the screws from the top. And I apologize for that rain noise if you can hear that. I'm going to try to take that out in post. But if it's still in there, I am sorry. It's there we go. That is the camera mount in place. Now, I'm going to take our camera and slide it in place. And I'm going to use, as you can see, this is the 3-hole design. So I'm going to use the 3rd hole, the middle hole, right in the center of the camera, and go ahead and line that up. And then you can pick how far back or forward you want this camera. And I mean, as you can tell already, that's a fairly snug fit, so I am happy with that. So to mount this camera, we need the 4mm M2s, and we're going to run that in with a 1.5mm hex driver. And then we're going to put the washer on the screw and then run that into the side of the camera. And then just give that a slight snug. Again, we're working with a very tiny screw, so we don't want to strip it out. Mostly we're trying not to strip out the camera screws. And on this one and right here. So again, this is tiny screws, and you don't want to strip anything out, so go easy with it. And we also do not want to cross thread. The other thing that we're going to have to be cognizant of is the bar goes right across here. So we're going to need to back this camera up just a pinch. And I notice that this bar is also going to prevent this camera from going down too low. So before I tighten these screws down, I'm going to put this standoff here. For the standoff, just place it right in place. And we're going to be running that in with, these are the 8mm button head screws. And I believe these run in with a 2mm hex. So we're just going to go ahead and put this in on the side here. Using caution not to cross thread, as I'm currently doing. There we go. Okay, now that our first standoff is in place, we kind of get an idea of how this camera is going to set. That's about 45 degrees. I think I want it probably as low as this frame will allow. That's about 35. It's higher than I want, but it is what it is. If I push this all the way back, I think I can get it a little lower. So anyway, it's clear to me that I'm going to need to readjust this in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and screw it in where it is. Okay, now that that's in, we have two more standoffs to place. And these are going to go, there's going to go one top here and then one bottom here. Let's start with this bottom one. These are the same 8mm button heads. And use caution not to cross thread. Woo. There it is. Now it's finally nice. I get some time to build, and this rain is just pouring down. I guess that's the way it is. Okay, go ahead and snug these down. You don't need to get crazy with them. We are snugging down into aluminum, so we don't want to snap the standoffs. And finally, the top one goes in the top hole. Okay, that is how to install the FPV camera on the Tasmanian. Nice and firm. That's not going anywhere. We're not going to have any camera shake issues with that. Sweet. Sweet, sweet, sweet. Okay. Next, while we are screwing stuff together, I'm going to take the frame, this is the bottom portion here, and include it as a TPU antenna mount. Then we have a couple of, I believe these are 10mm M3 socket heads, and we have a couple of M3 nylocks. So grab two of those, and this piece here, the antenna mount, and this goes off the back. Now you can mount this either on the top or the bottom. For this build, I'm going to mount it on the bottom. My plan is to add, I believe I'll put an Axie 2 on this. I may or may not put an ARM. That would actually be kind of cool, I think, if I went with an ARM on this. So I may or may not take this off at a later time, but for now I'm going to put it on. So for this one, we are going to go through the TPU first, then through the carbon, and then place our nylocks on last. These, I believe, are going to use a 2.5. Yes. So we need a 2.5 and a pair of pliers to hold the nylock. Okay, that takes care of our antenna mount. Now, mostly because I want to clear up some room in the screw bag, because there's a ton of screws, and because I've still got the Allen wrench out to do these cap head screws, we want to grab 8 of the 10mm cap head screws. These are driven with the 2mm, 2.5mm Allen key. And then we want these standoffs. These standoffs are the 25mm standoffs. Now, where these are going to go, the arm is captured by a standoff on either side in 4 places. So if we look at the frame here, we'll see a giant hole here. That's where the center pin comes through the arm, and then we see 2 holes to either side of that. That's what we want to deal with right now. The ones that we want to actually use right now are the ones closest to the TPU ESC holders. So we got 2 here, 2 here, 2 here, and 2 here. And the way we're going to do that is just place this here and then run the screw through the bottom. Just like so. And then just give it a slight snug, just in case we forget to come back and snug them later. I don't anticipate, but you never know. Okay, so those 8 are installed. Next, I think I want to install the battery leads, and I do not have the batteries still. For this step, we are going to need this 10 gauge wire. I'm going to add the battery leads to the PDB. The other thing that we're going to need is a giant roll of solder. This is a 1 pound roll. We're going to go through probably, without exaggeration, probably a good couple feet. The plan is to strip the wire back just so it slots right into this hole here, and then I'm going to solder over it, and then I'm going to draw the solder up onto the current sensors, both of them, and repeating the same process over here. I'm going to leave a little bit of solder off here for these. These holes are for the capacitor. So the first step is I'm going to install the positive lead and draw the solder onto these first. So let's go ahead and strip this wire back. I have a set of wire snips here, and this is just giant freaking wire. So I'm only stripping back about 1/4 of an inch. I want it to fit right in there. And what I'm going to do now is definitely pre-tin this, because this is going to take a lot of solder. And to do that, I'm going to take quad hands, magnetic workbench, and just one little gripper here to hold that wire in place. Over here I've got my FM 2027 with the 3.2 millimeter chisel tip in it. I'm going to go ahead and clean that off. So now I'm going to give this guy some heat and run some solder into it. Once this thing heats up, it's going to take a boatload of solder. There she goes. And I'd rather flow the solder into it now than once we make our connection. So now that that's good, I'm going to take this. And this is what I love about the quad hand. See that solder drip? Just bloop, move it right away. Cool. Get you out of here. All right, so now that this is all set, oh, I see why it dripped. I see why it dripped. Okay, I'm gonna pull that off of there. All right, so now that we have that all set, this we're gonna put right in here. And again, to do that, I'm gonna hold it with this guy here. And actually change this to the longer wire, the longer arm. I am actually going to do that. Hold this guy right in place. Right about there. Okay. Now that that is in place, got my solder ready. And we are going to use a lot of solder. The issue here, oops, we want that in the positive. That would have been a dumb mistake. What do you think? Yes, part of the small difficulties of trying to film and build something all at the same time Not a big deal. So we are just going to feed gobs of solder in here and run that up into the current sensor. And this thing is just sweet. Got tons of heat. There we go. The one thing I am going to do is I'm going to end up pulling this off, flipping this PDB, and hitting these from the backside as well. But that's good for now. We're going to do the same with the negative wire. I'm going to strip about the same off, about 1/4 inch. Do this just like that, and I want to make sure to capture all my wires, and we're going to give this a little bit of pre-tin. And once the tip of this wire heats up, it will take solder. We don't need a ton in there. That's good. Anytime we start ice cream coning like that, it means we do not have enough flux in our in our connection. So just be aware of that. Okay, so we got that. And this one we're going to put right here. Hold this in place. What I'm trying to do is just heat up this wire enough to kind of push it into that slot just a little bit, but I guess it's not going to happen, so we're just going to mount it right where it is. Okay, we want to make sure we don't bridge from the negative to the positive. That would be a bad day, but that looks like it's good. That is solidified. And there we have it. A couple of nice connections. Now what I'm going to do is, if I take that and kind of wrap this along here, let's say the battery's probably got a lead like that. So I think about that long, what's that, like 8 inches? Is going to be ample, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut that, and we'll install the ends. To cut these guys, I got a pair of electrical dikes here. Yeah, I'll go about this long. That should be plenty. That should be plenty. So now that that's done, I want to go ahead and pull this PDB out and flip it. So to do that, let's hope we don't burn ourselves. Well, you guys aren't going to burn yourself. I'm going to end up burning myself. I'm going to go ahead and pull those off. I'm going to pull these rear ESCs out. And see if I can flip this. Without, yeah, no. Okay, so I gotta pull 3 of these ESCs out and then flip it. Okay, as you can see, yeah, see how it drew my solder through? I'm just gonna clean that up a bit. And to do that, I'm gonna use one of these guys to hold these wires. My God, those magnets. So let's use both of these. One on each. There we go. All right, so I just want to clean up these joints here. Well, mostly this positive pad and this negative. I just want to get a lot more solder into it. So let's start by cleaning up this positive pad, which has way too much solder. Of course, here's where I need a solder sucker or something like that, and I don't have one. I'm just going to bring this closer because this is a little ridiculous. And I'm just kind of wicking some of it away. Great. Now that that's good, let's fix this negative pad with just a little bit more solder. There we go. And fix that positive pad. Perfect. So I feel a little bit better about those joints. And as you can see, there's the positives, a little screwy, but that's a good connection. Definitely a good connection, and then there's still room to get the capacitor hooked in there. And what I think I'm going to do with the capacitor is I have some waffle blocks, and I'll show you those. Not right now. I think those are in the other room. But what those allow you to do is it's a block that goes on top of the capacitor, and you cut the legs super short, and then it gives you a solder pad directly on the top of the capacitor. So then you take that solder pad and you can then solder wires directly onto it. And now I understand that you can just solder wires directly to the legs, but that's not as secure. So I'm kind of excited. It's an interesting product. They're like $3. They come with, I think, like 5 in the package. So I picked up one just to test it out, and I think this is the build that I'm going to try them on, which will be nice because then you can mount your capacitor pretty much wherever you want. And if that's the case, you know, instead of mounting it straddling these 2 wires, I can then mount it, you know, if I put one here, one there. You can almost put it wherever you want it to. I mean, you can even put it inside of the arm if you can find a way to mount it good enough. So there's that. Okay, so now that that is done, I think I'm going to live dangerously and terminate the ends of these without having the batteries. Because I think if I screw that up, then I'll have to cut and resolder, and I don't know. With as much solder as I think it's going to go into those things, I don't think I'm going to be able to use them. But anyway, let's do that. Okay, so we are not going to be using XT60s on this thing. We are going to be using what's called the AS150. Now, these guys, the AS standing for anti-spark. As you can see, there's a little ring around here that is the anti-spark device. Because when we're messing with as many volts, or excuse me, amps as these things will draw, you can imagine the size of the spark that an unprotected circuit will make when you just all of a sudden allow those amps to free flow. So there's that. These are highly suggested from Catalyst Machineworks, and I understand why. So the first thing that we're going to do is do a little bit of pre-tinning to these wires. And then once we do that, we're going to need to put the plastic parts on first. Because the way these work is this will slide on like this, and then this plastic bit will slide on and then screw on. As you can see, there's some knurling here, threading for the plastic parts to sit properly. So I'm just gonna go with a little bit of pre-tinning on these, and then plastic parts on. And realistically, we should probably put the plastic parts on first, but we already started. Just a little bit of pre-tinning. You guys see that all right? I'm kind of off camera, I'm sorry. Come on, heat up. Heat up. There we go. There we go. Let's get that wire back in there. Okay. We're gonna let that cool down just a pinch. And what we're gonna do is take our positive lead, cover that. And I think what I'm going to do is try to put this so it's facing downwards like this. Hopefully that will help. Let's get you off of there. Maybe that will help. I don't know. We'll give it a try. Is I want to prevent this from caking all over those threads. Try ripping those off. Maybe it'll hold better. Yes. All right, let's give this a try. Get in there. There we go. It's starting to take. And almost as full as I want to be. I think that'll do it right there. Just a pinch more. Okay, yeah, don't blow on it like I just did, but I think that'll work good. I think we got a good connection there. So I think my plan is going to be to place this inside of here. Oops. Something like that. And hopefully that will keep the piece from melting. Yeah, there we go. All right. And the same thing, I'm gonna point this end down. Of course, I'm not gonna be able to grab it. There we go. I'm pointing the end down so that once this stuff liquefies, it doesn't go out of that hole and then it'll end up on this threading. There we go, it's starting to take. Once I start to see it fill up, like that, perfect. I think that's what we want. So now what we do with this is we pick this up and we screw this. Oh, damn, that's hot. We screw that up there. So that's that. This negative lead is set. Got this hole filled up, so that means the solder soaked all the way through, and we kept it cold enough that we didn't melt our anti-spark. So the next thing that we're going to do here is run this down to the end and then screw this onto the fitting. And right there, and it kind of bottoms out. Same thing with this one, we got that to the point where it bottoms out. So that is all set. The next thing that we should address is the capacitor. So for this one, I got a 390 microfarad capacitor. So we want to grab the negative side and put that to the negative side. This guy. So in this, I'm going to use, and this might be too skinny, this is the T15D12. This is a chisel tip. Okay, so that is one side. Now we're going to flip it over and complete the positive side. Okay. And what I would also like to do is solder this from the back side. And it looks as though I can get in there, but it will be easier if I pull this off to cut those. So I'm going to do like I did before and remove these rear ASCs and one front one so I can flip this over. Okay, now that that is loose, kind of flip this guy over like that, and now we can hit the back side of this. Alright, now that that is complete, we can go ahead and grab our angle nips and just clip these legs off. That is all set. And we'll screw down our PDB again. And next I'm just going to take a 4-inch zip tie and wrap it around here. One of them I'm going to put right up close. right in that little groove and cut it. And do I need a second one? Yeah, I think I'm only going with the one. That seems good. I'm just gonna roll this guy down and hide it. Yeah, that seems good. So now these can still move freely. This is held in place. Everything is good. So the way that this flight controller connects is with a ribbon cable. This is the Maytag F722. And we're always wondering what side is what. Do we put the blue up? Do we put the blue down? So how we're going to check this, let's move that guy out of frame there. We're going to use our trusty multimeter. And we're just going to set this to a continuity mode. And what we're going to do is check these legs. And all we got to do is just check one of them. So we're on continuity. We can check that. Very good. So all we're going to do is just check one of these legs, or even two of them, and just see, as you can see, we do have connectivity. So this is how this goes. If you're going to do this in the future, we want the blue side towards the board. And the same will go for this PDB. So this guy, how we do this, the board comes like this. So we take this pin header and we push this guy up, just like that. Now we're going to take, make sure that this is facing, so you can see there's an arrow facing me. So we're going to take this ribbon cable and we're going to slide it right into this guy. It goes right on top of that, the black plastic switch there, and slide it all the way in, just like that. And then you go ahead and cinch it down by pushing it towards you. And part of the problem is when you really got to do it with two hands. There we go. And that is that. That's the flight controller installed. It's literally that easy. Now what I usually do on some of the smaller freestyle builds, and I'm not going to do it on this one, but I'll explain why. What I will do is I will back that up. If I flip this over so you can see what's going on here. Underneath this pad you can see like a S4 pad, an S3 pad. I'll use this to point right here. You can see an S4 pad. There's a few more, S3, S2, whatever. And then over here we've got the same thing, S1, S2, S3, S4, and current and telemetry and all that sort of stuff. Now this is covered inside of this ribbon cable. The reason I will run redundant wires is because I don't really trust this ribbon cable system to hold a connection. But the reason I am going to run it as is all alone is because I'm not going to be running anything beyond that to this flight controller. Anything that relies on power, the VTX is going to allow us to power all that sort of stuff. Your typical VTX doesn't have all these pins broken out. So I think this is going to work for us. Okay, next we need our 4 nylon nuts, and we're just going to cinch down this flight controller for now. Oops. Okay, so that is our flight controller installed. We're going to have to still install the camera. We're going to have to install the VTX. We're going to have to install the receiver, And we're also going to have to install, if I decide to get one, is a GPS. So those are the few items that need to get installed there. We'll have to run our camera wire soon. But yeah, it's coming along. It's definitely coming along. It's looking good. Absolutely looking good. Ugh, there we go. Ugh, beast. Absolute freaking beast. Look at that. Just, ugh. Look at that. That is gonna be sweet. Absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely. Wow. So we jammed on this thing today. We got a lot done. Super excited. And behind the scenes, I'm sorry I didn't include this video, but I'm gonna test it out. I'm gonna go test this thing out right now. Let's hope we don't blow it up. So that's how to install the power wires, the flight controller if you're using this same style. And again, I might go back and put some proprietary wires on there. I still got to get back to this PDB and set up the pin in out. I've still got to set up the there's still a lot of stuff that we have to do to this, but I'm just getting the main stuff just together. Yeah, so we are getting ever so close. I think next time we'll probably put the motors on the arms, and I'm still waiting for a bunch of components to come in. A lot of the crossfire stuff is just back ordered, so that sucks, but it is what it is. So we're getting there. I know it's taken a while, but it's a big build. It's definitely a big build. These machines take a lot of work, as one user had mentioned, and he's right. It's, you know, we have also got to take our time and just make sure it's done right, because this is not something we want falling out of the sky. This is not your typical 5-inch quad, so the element of danger is definitely there. We want to do it right. So if you enjoyed this video, click that thumbs up button, and if you're following along, leave me a comment below. If you think I'm nuts, leave me a comment below. And if you haven't done it already, go ahead and punch that subscribe button, because you only get to do it once, and it's fun. And I'll catch you later. Peace. We have this monster 10-gauge wire. Just look at that. Ugh, that's like a worm. Ugh, just giant.